Hey everybody, I'm here today to show you how you can do some no-line watercoloring and using that to create a scene. I'm going to be featuring the 2 Paper Divas stamp set today, branching out. Here's a look at the card that I'm going to make today, so let's go ahead and get started. I've got my Misty out, and there's that stamp set that I'm going to use today. Again, it's from 2 Paper Divas, and it's called Branching Out. There you can see the name right there. And then I'm also going to flip it over and let you see all these images that you can use. Tons of them, so you can use this throughout the entire year. Now, I've got my Misty again, and I've also got a piece of Canson watercolor paper in here that I have cut to 3 3/4 tall by 5 1/2 inches wide. I'm going to go ahead and start stamping my scene now. And at first, I'm just going to place that long branch down on my card, and I am just making sure that all my little pieces that I'm using are going to fit, and I'll just line those up on the right-hand side there. And it ends up that my little swing won't fit, but I will show you how I'm going to fix that. So I go ahead and close my lid and load that stamp up, and then I'm just going to be using Distress ink and antique linen for this. I chose Distress ink because it is water soluble, and so it's just going to blend nicely when I go to watercolor this, and you're not going to see any of the lines. So I'll go ahead and stamp that down, press it pretty firmly just to get a nice good impression there. And then I'm going to go ahead and move my cardstock in the Misty to where I'm using it horizontally, just because I need to get that branch fit nice and snug in there. So I went ahead and placed that on the right hand side now, and I've angled it and moved it out, so I'm just using a portion of it just to make it look like I'm not repeating the same stamp over and over. I've also went ahead and stamped that in the right top hand corner. I didn't get a very good impression with this, so I am going to go ahead and double stamp this. And that is the beauty of the Misty. I know it's going to be in the same exact place. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on and stamp that tire swing. When I go to place this down, I noticed that I did not stamp my branch high enough, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and just do a little bit of very simple masking to make this work. So I'm just going to go ahead and place that tire swing where I want it, load it up on my Misty, and then just use a Post-it note to go ahead and mask off the top of that tree branch. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect, and that is because my ink is water soluble. When I go and watercolor with this, all of my lines are going to disappear in the end. So any overstamping that you have, it'll be fine. It will all work out in the end, and you'll see again, I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down and remove my mask. I'll turn my Misty vertically, and I'm positioning my bird in my treehouse. And again, I am not making sure these are completely perfect because I can fix anything when I watercolor. So I'll just load those up on my Misty, use that antique linen Distress ink, and I'll stamp that down onto the card panel, making sure that they're pretty lined up, but again, doesn't have to be perfect. Here you can see that I am taking this little bitty leaf stamp that comes in the stamp set, and this is going to help me make each of these branches look different, so it doesn't look like I have stamped the same branch over and over all the way across the card panel. So I am just randomly stamping these, and I am letting some overhang off the edge so it looks more authentic, like it really was supposed to be that way. So I'll just randomly stamp those on each of the tree branches that I have stamped. And you can do some close together, some further apart. It's all up to you. There you can see my inked panel ready to be watercolored. Now I have taped this down to hardboard, and I'm going to be using Distress inks to watercolor. I'm going to list these all on my blog, but not on here. So if you want to know exact colors, you can head on over there and check out the supply list. This technique takes a long time to do, so I will sit back and let you guys listen to some music. So I am just finishing up putting a few little shadows in here and darkening up just a few pieces, and then I'll go ahead and hold this up so you can see the finished technique up close, the finished panel up close. And this is a gorgeous technique. It gives amazing results once you really practice with it. So once I finished that and let it dry, I moved on to this Lawn Fawn stitched border die collection of dies here. Now I was nervous about putting this through my die cut machine after I spent so much time on it, but it worked beautifully. I used my T-square ruler to line that die up on the bottom, and it's just going to put stitched lines right along the bottom edge. It's not going to cut anything, it's just putting the stitching detail on it. I went ahead and sent this through on the top after I lined it up. I was just as nervous this time sending it through my die cut machine, but it worked beautifully, and here you can see a close-up of the finished stitching detail that it adds. I wanted to go ahead and stamp my sentiment at this point, so I put my cardstock panel that I had, my watercolor panel that I had colored in before, and I lined that up just to make sure there was room for my sentiment at the bottom. I lined that up and I looked through my MISTI. You could see my face there in the camera, and I just made sure that it was nice and straight. I'm using my embossing bag, and I'm going to go ahead and treat this mustard yellow cardstock that I have. It matches my little bird perfectly. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp this sentiment down in Versamark ink. This sentiment is from the same stamp set that I used on this card, and it is such a unique thank you sentiment. I love it. It says, "Thanks for going out on a limb." So it's not your typical thank you sentiment, and it could even be used for non-thank you cards too. I think it's really unique and really fun. I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle white embossing powder over this, and I'll just tap off the excess and brush off any little strays that I might have left on there. And I'll pull out my heat gun, and I will go ahead and heat set this. This was the first time I had used this heat gun. My last one broke after 7 years. I had it since I first started card making, so this was the first time I used my new one. And I'm not sure if I like it yet. I'll let you know, but it's doing the job for now. So I went ahead and heat set that, and then I'm going to go ahead and start putting this card together. I have a white A2 card base, and I am just attaching that mustard yellow cardstock panel that is the same size as the card base to the front of it. I've used double-sided adhesive, and I'll just press that down. I didn't want to put any dimension on this card, so I just put adhesive straight on the back of the watercolor paper, and I will just line that up with the top of the card and press that down as well. I thought about adding some embellishments to this, but I spent so much time with the watercoloring, I wanted to leave this nice and simple, and I thought the stitching really was enough for this card. And that finished the card for today. This is such a fun technique. It takes a little practice and a little bit of time, but I think the end result is so worth it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will leave you with just a few pictures of the finished card. For more information and the supply list, you can visit my blog, craftingwhilecaffeinated.wordpress.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and happy crafting!